Hello students, welcome to this course on gender sensitization. Today we are going to discuss the issue of female feticide. Now, do you know what does this term mean? Female feticide is the abortion of a female fetuses outside the legal methods. You know, feticide has been linked to the arrival in the early 1990s of affordable ultrasound technologies and the widespread adoption in India. Obstetric ultrasonography and other trans vaginal or trans abdominally, it checks the various markers of the fetal sex, and it can be performed any time after 12 weeks of pregnancy, and then it became something very important. When we look at the sex ratio between boys and girls, anything which is outside 105:107 range, it necessarily implies a sex selective abortion. Scholars claim that both sex ratio at the birth and the population of sex ratio is remarkably constant in human population. It does not really vary much, but significant deviations in the birth sex ratio from this normal range, it can be explained primarily by manipulation, and that is what is called the sex selective abortion. The Indian government has also passed the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Technique Act, which is called the PCPNDT Act of 1994, and it bans the prenatal sex screening and female feticide. Even today if you go to any clinic, you will find big posters which say that it is a crime to ask the sex of the child, and yet clinics have developed their own ways of saying that they will say after going for the sonography, they will say Jai Ma Durge, or they will say Jai Shiva. So, sending a message to the other party that it is a girl or a boy, and they will find excuses and abort a female fetus. And though it is illegal in India, there are so many ways by which it happens and sex selection goes on. In fact, if you look at the census data of our country, in 1901, for every 1000 males, we had 972 girls. In 1911, for every 1000 males, we had 964. By the time we come to 2011, for every 1000 males, we have only 914 girls. So, and this is something which is found not only at the national level. If you look at state level also, there has been a decrease in the sex ratio, and the main reason for this is again the socio-cultural environment, which is very much biased against women, and the whole new sophisticated medical technologies which are strengthening these biases. In fact, if you look at the 2001 census, in the age group of 0 to 6, we find that the more prosperous states like Delhi, Punjab, Haryana and Gujarat, they have the lowest sex ratio, and within these states, the most affluent pockets again have the sharpest drop. Southwest Delhi, which is where some of the most richest and the most educated Indians reside, the sex ratio is only 854 against and 904 it was in 1991. So, there has been a drastic reduction. In fact, you will be surprised to know that there are villages after villages in Punjab and Haryana where there are no girls now. See, all these, everybody wanted a male child, female fetuses were aborted, and now all these boys have grown up, they have to get married, and there are no girls available. So, what are they doing? They are getting wives from Jharkhand, from Tamil Nadu, from Kerala. These women do not understand the culture of that region, they do not understand the language, but the woman is only seen as a reproductive machine. If she can produce a son, that is what they are looking at. So, it is very essential that we save this girl child. What will the world be where there are no girl children? it will really create a chaos. But there is so much of a bias against the girl child that we don't even allow her to survive. We have to recognize that this girl child is the woman of the future, and unless we have a girl child, we allow her to be born, you know, and then we raise her up to grow with a lot of self-esteem, you know, not just in recipient roles, but in active productive roles. Only then will we have an empowered women. The whole goal of our society is to have an active, healthy and a confident female child, but unfortunately we don't even allow the girl to be born. So, where can we give this kind of opportunity? If you look at the national trend, you know, it is showing a decline throughout the census, and there is a lot of strengthening of these biases, because if you see the life of a girl child, there is so much of discrimination. We give lot of emphasis saying, you know, she has to be educated, there has to be dowry which has to be given, and finally she has to be sent to another family. You know, our society is very patriarchal. There is always a preference for a son, and it is not something that has come immediately. If you look at our ancient text, you know, there is a hymn in the Rig Veda where Agni is called to protect the bride so that she will be of blessed womb, a mother to many children who live to old age, and who will she will experience happiness from her son. So, they are all talking only about sons. There is again, you know, there is an expectation from the bride that she will be fertile and she will have many sons, so that they are very happy. And the husband, you know, prays. In the Parasa Smriti, the husband recites the following verse. He says, "Thou art Ida, the daughter of Mitra and Varun, thou strong women to whom are born strong sons. Be thou blessed with strong children, thou who has been blessed with a strong son." So, you know, there are so many prayers for son. There is always a desire for a son, and it is, you know, right from the Vedic period, because a son is called a putra. Putra is someone who saves you from put, from hell. A father can throw his debts on his son and then he can leave the world, but he cannot throw his debts on his daughter. And the Vishnu Smriti says clearly, through a son, a father conquers the world. Through a grandson, he obtains immortality, and through a son's grandson, he gains the world of the son. So, you know, and there are so many prayers which are said in the Vedic period, where there is always a prayer for having a son, you know, having a strong son, and this is something which is very much emphasized upon. In the later Vedic period, when, you know, a lot of religious changes are occurring in our society, we find that women from upper caste, they became more and more preoccupied with rituals, and again, you know, there are so many vrats which are performed for the birth of a son. And the Aitreya Brahmana states that the sun is a boat of salvation, a light in the highest heaven. A wife is a comrade, but a daughter is a misery. So, you know, they don't even want to have a daughter. And again, it is very interesting that when Gautam Buddha comes, you know, through he was very revolutionary in many ways, but still he considered women to be inferior to men. And he never wanted initially the women to be part of the Sangha, but slowly he opened the doors. The son is the only one who can light the funeral pyre of his father. The daughter is not allowed, and in many cases they are not allowed to inherit property. In fact, if you read the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, you know, in the Mahabharata you have every family having so many sons, and the daughters are never part of any yagya, and they are not part of any ritual. The Pumsavana Vrat which is carried out is carried so that the women gives birth to a daughter, and there are so many demon spirits about which it is being spoken about, and they have this ability to convert a male fetus into a female fetus, and there is a lot of these prayers so that the woman is a fertile woman and she just gives birth to a son. So, there is a lot of importance given to it, and so many vrats are performed by the women so that they give birth to a girl child. When Islam comes into being, at that time also the baby girl is seen as a source of shame. Even they were burying these girls alive. Female infanticide was very common, but then Prophet Muhammad said that this was something which was very wrong, and he advocated that one should not kill these female children, and it says he giveth whom he wills males, or he makes them both males and female. The Quran states in to Allah belongs the dominion of the heaven and the earth. He creates what he wills. He gives to whom he wills female children, and he gives to whom he wills male, or he makes them both males and females, and he renders whom he will barren. Indeed, he is knowing and competent. So, Islam brought about a change, but then there is again a lot of interaction in society, and we find that girls were not valued as such. A very good example is if we look at folklore of our region. They are so much biased against girl child, and therefore there is a major reason for these kinds of aspects to be carried out in the family. There is a Telugu proverb which says, bringing up a daughter is like watering plants in someone else's garden, or if you tell lies you will have a female child. It is better to be born as a tree in a jungle than to be born as a girl. And when you have these kinds of myths and folklore, definitely the parents would only want to have a male child. In fact, there is another proverb which says it is easier to perform the Ashwamedh Yajna than to perform the marriage of a daughter. And there is another very important Rajasthani proverb which says women are like shoes and they can easily be ripped. Not only in India, but all over the world, you have lot of proverbs which are very much biased against girls and women. There is an African proverb which says that a horse which wants to die at an early age will bear a female. A person who bears a daughter and trades by pepper lives by tearing tears. And there is a Russian proverb which says that girls are beautiful, sweet and tender, and where do all these wicked wives come from? It says that again there is an Arabic, Jewish, Yemenish proverbs that a girl should not have too many conversation and she should not greet too many people. And so there are so many of these proverbs which are so much biased against girls and women, and these go into a long way in encouraging families to go for female feticide, because you have created that environment which is very much biased against a girl child. Therefore, to conclude, we have to recognize that ours is a patriarchal society. There is a lot of preference for boys in this society. We have a very traditional mindset. In spite of all modernization, we have not been able to change this mindset. And so, a girl child, if she is born, is undervalued and she is not given her due, and therefore female feticide becomes the norm in our families, in our societies. And what is very important is we need to change this mindset. We need to change the attitude of the people, and only then will we be able to deal with the issue of female feticide. Thank you.